Hello. 2021 sees the 30th anniversary of the Kinesiology Federation, and as part of our celebrations, we're speaking to people who were there at the beginning of the Federation, who helped set it up, and other notable figures from the world of kinesiology. I'm Phil Clubley, I'm the current chair of the Kinesiology Federation, and it's my pleasure today to be speaking to Carrie Jost. Carrie is an honorary member of the Federation, but she was there at the beginning and set up the Kinesiology Federation with several other members. She is the founder and the head of Creative Kinesiology, and it's just brilliant to see you here today, Carrie. How are you doing?
Thank you, Phil. Yes, it's good to be here and good to talk about the old days.
Oh, the old days. No, it's really good to get insight into what those early days were like. So what was it like creating the Kinesiology Federation? What was your reasoning for thinking that was necessary?
Well, it came out of the Touch for Health Association because I discovered Touch for Health in the mid-1980s and absolutely loved it, helped me enormously. And so I joined the Touch for Health Association, which at some point, I can't remember quite how, but we decided we needed to bring all the different branches of kinesiology together because new kinesiologies were being formed and particularly being brought over from America. So
Right.
there was Paul Dennison bringing Educate, which I studied as well. And there was 3-in-1 coming over from America. Bruce Dew was bringing PKP over. So there were lots of different threads of kinesiology on top of the Touch for Health, which was a kind of basis, a baseline of what we all learnt and loved and got an enormous amount from. So from that, we felt that having an umbrella organisation would be just so useful, so good.
Yes. Yeah, and what were those early days like? Were there lots of discussions? Was it a lot of around pub tables chatting, or how did those meetings start out?
Well, for me, they started in Educate places. When I was training in Educate, I met quite a lot of people through that in other parts of the country, because up till then I trained in Touch for Health and applied kinesiology and done Brian Butler's Touch for Health instructors training.
Oh wow.
And so I'd met quite a lot of people that way, but then began to meet people who were involved with the different kinesiologies coming over from America and the ones that were being homegrown as well. And at that point, we used to talk in breaks, phone each other up, set up steering groups. We had a very interesting beginning meeting somewhere in London, can't remember where now, but lots of people turned up and there was a really good discussion about why we needed it. Did we need it? Some people, quite prominent, said we didn't need it, that everything was fine as it was. But actually there was a group of us who really felt it was needed. So we stuck together and started to develop the Kinesiology Federation.
Oh, that's amazing. That's brilliant.
It was really exciting. That's what I'd really like to get over. Really exciting times, because kinesiology was new. It was something that not many people knew about. And that's beginning to change, which is great after 30 years. So that time was a kind of excitement in the air about it. And
Yeah.
I loved that.
Oh, that's brilliant. So what was life like for you before kinesiology? Can you remember such a time?
Oh, I can, yes. Yeah, I went to university, studied town planning, became a town planner for a few years.
And was one of those planning councils in Bradford?
Bradford, that's
yes, just down the motorway from me.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Well, that was an interesting time. I learnt a lot. I mean, I think those early jobs do teach us a lot, actually.
Yes.
And from there, I went to Peterborough Newtown and did some kind of social town planning. there because the new town was being developed. Then I had children, spent a few years focusing on children, and then went back into the new town working as a community worker,
Okay.
which I loved. I mean, I found I really loved working with people. It was great. Really exciting times there as well, because we were developing something new.
Yes.
And yes, it was good times.
Yeah, it's interesting about community as well, because kind of that's what the Federation was about. It was about building a community of professionals. So yeah, a nice little dovetail there. So how did you find Touch for Health? What was it that led you into discovering muscle testing and kinesiology?
Right. Well, I needed a break from the children at some point. I was working full time and I had 2 young daughters, wonderful though they are, and they still are. What I needed was some time off, so I went on a 2-week residential course in massage, and much to my surprise, I loved it. Loved the course, loved the work, and finished this was the early 80s, and really enjoyed beginning to work doing massage, body work. I've always liked body work. It's really great. And from there, I began to discover that wonderful world of part-time weekend courses, which still exists, as we know, because
it does.
we teach those in kinesiology, don't we? And I lived in Peterborough at the time, and discovered Romy Payne, as she was called then, who was teaching Touch for Health and applied kinesiology. And she was amazing. I had sessions with her first. That's how I discovered her.
Right.
And did her course. Loved it. She was inspirational, actually.
Oh, that's what you need in a teacher, isn't it?
Absolutely. She really inspired me to go on and do more training. She was great.
Fantastic. Oh, that's brilliant. And so when did you make that sort of leap from deciding that it was something that you enjoyed to something that you wanted to be a practitioner of, and then set up a school, which is incredible?
Well, it was complicated. It was in the 1980s, the Development Corporation was inevitably going to fold up because the new town would pass over to the existing local council. So we had a couple of years' notice. So I was made redundant in 1988, which is when we all were, received a lump sum to go, which meant that I could dare to set up as a practitioner. So at that point, I set up as a kinesiology practitioner, and shortly after as a psychotherapist, because I'd also been training in psychotherapy.
Okay.
So that was in 1987 I set up, and in 1988 became full-time. And I was teaching Touch for Health by that time, and Educate, and applied kinesiology that I'd learnt from Romy, and which I called advanced kinesiology because there was a little bit of a thing about what we could call it. Were we allowed to call it applied kinesiology when I wasn't part of the ICAC setup?
Yes.
So I called it advanced kinesiology. And then I met Håkon Lovell, who was a kinesiologist. He had been an acupuncturist, and I found him inspirational as well. He just, I don't know, something about the way he worked with energy and the way he put it into a form that we could work with that was just marvelous. The very first time I went to see him work, he did a demonstration where he showed that this man who came up to the front to be demonstrated on was limping because he had a really bad hip. And he lay down on the couch, and Håkon discovered that there was some ancestral problem that went back into his ancestor of religious persecution.
Okay.
And what happened with that was that he did the work that this man needed, some techniques, acupuncture points, acupressure, that kind of thing, not acupuncture, but using the acupressure points,
Mhm.
and some bark flower remedies, that kind of thing. And this man got off the table and walked away straight. He was no longer limping. He felt absolutely marvellous. He looked completely different. And I just thought, this is marvellous, absolutely marvellous. So I did his 1-year course, the only one he ever ran. And I'm so glad I did it, because it meant that I could then go on and begin to teach it, which I did in 1991. I think I started including that in what I was teaching. So at that point, the School of Creative Kinesiology became, it wasn't called that at that time. I think we called it something else, but that's what it was. It was the teaching I was doing. And it came under that kind of heading. The Kinesiology Federation recognised the courses, and it was just fantastic.
That's brilliant. I love those transformative demonstrations as well, where people, you know, really sort of see and feel a difference. You know, it's fantastic to see. Have you got any examples of where you've seen, you know, a big transformation in somebody from either a session or having sessions, either yourself or a client?
Well, I'd rather talk about myself, really, because...
I want you to talk about yourself.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I've got loads of examples of people having just such brilliant results from the work. I mean, it's incredible. It is transformational, completely.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, when I started working with Romy Payne in Cambridge, I had terrible digestive problems, IBS, bloating, constipation, ghastly. That's enough detail. Anyway, I went to Romy, and she discovered ileocecal valve problems, Hoofston valve problems, diaphragm problems, nutritional problems, all kinds of things. And what she did was give me the tools where I could change my diet, start working in a different way with my gut and my diet and how I approach food, and transformed in a couple of years, which was amazing. And, you know, IBS is one of those things that people have so often. Yes. And I think they're stuck with it. I thought I was stuck with it. I thought this was how life would be forever. And it isn't. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's what's amazing, isn't it? Is you know, with ourselves, our clients, we get to this point where you think, is this going to be the rest of my life? Is this something I just have to deal with? And it's incredible that we actually have the ability to make these huge changes in our lives. We sometimes just need to make, you know, small dietary changes or changes to our lifestyle, but so much of it, you know, we haven't talked much about energy in these interviews, and I'm really glad you mentioned energy earlier on. But it's the energy of these situations. It's our relationship with ourselves, you know, our relationship with our psyche, and sometimes we're just out of kilter with who we think we are. And I think, you know, just getting in tune with those aspects of ourselves can make such a massive difference.
Oh, I so agree, Phil. Yes, nicely put.
Oh, thank you. So what keeps you passionate about kinesiology? Obviously, you know, you've talked about your own health and where you've benefited. Does that sort of keep you interested? Is it seeing new students coming through?
Well, it's everything, really, because every time I work with a client, even on Zoom, you know, I can see that their eyes are brighter, their posture changes, the colour changes, they have a different tone in their voice. And that is a complete gift to me as a practitioner. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like, because every session's as different as the client is different, it's always different in what we're doing. You know, no two sessions are the same from that point of view, I guess. So if you're describing kinesiology to a new client or a new student, how do you do that? It's something that we often struggle with in kinesiology, is trying to find a nutshell description of kinesiology without going around the houses. Do you have a simple way of describing it?
Well, it's more important that we're able to speak it in these days, because we're not able to meet people in the same way. If I was meeting people, I'd show them muscle testing, I'd get them to experience it. But in the speaking of it, I would say that kinesiology gives us a way of listening to the person's body and energy systems. And because the body knows everything about us, it's been with us since we were first conceived, and it's still here. So this body knows everything about me, which nobody else does, nobody else. So the fact that we can use muscle testing to get a feedback and really hear what the body's saying, I think is absolutely fantastic. It's really fantastic. And that I still love that about kinesiology, because I can use muscle testing, you know, this yes, no, and all the different muscles we can check, because they give us so much information about what's happening to the person. And in relation to, you know, people come with symptoms and difficulties and problems and that kind of thing, but that can be anything. And the bit I really love at the beginning of a session is, here's my big pot here. So what we do is put all the things that are problems into the pot, even if they appear not to be connected, and find an indicator for them. So by the time we've done the work on them and we've found the story that's behind them, we can check all these items in the pot, and quite often they've all changed in some way. And I love that. You know, we're working with whole people. We're not working with a piece of a person. We're working with people who are completely connected in every part of them with every other part, because we can't be working just as a stomach or as a brain or as a foot or a shoulder. You know, that's not who we are. We're whole people, and kinesiology really addresses that. I love it.
Oh, that's a perfect way of describing it. And again, you know, talking about IBS and digestive problems, it's like, it's not just saying you just need to change your diet. There are so many more components. It is that holistic model that is so brilliant. And what I love again about that muscle testing and that body wisdom and the body knowing everything that's ever happened, you know, it's a repository for every experience, every feeling we've ever had. And when people say, how do you know that? How do you know that about me? And it's like, because your body's just told me, you know, the information's there. We just don't always have access to it for whatever reason. I mean, I guess there's just so much information. We can't have access to all of it all of the time. We'd blow our tiny minds. But, you know, that information is there, and it's about listening to our bodies. And it's a really hard thing for us to do. And that's where kinesiology is just brilliant, is you know, accessing those parts, you know, that symbiotic relationship between a client and a practitioner, and tuning into that energy. I'm still quite enthusiastic about it as well.
You sound it. I love it. I love that you are. What was your training in, Phil?
Health kinesiology.
Oh, right.
So I did my training with Amanda Brooks in Oxford in 2007 and 2008. So, and again, just absolutely fascinating. And I sort of went into my first kinesiology lesson thinking, this is what I want to do with my life. This is going to be brilliant. I'm going to transform the world. And then, I couldn't get a muscle to respond, and I felt a failure, and incredibly difficult. But once you start sort of getting a handle on that muscle testing, it is just such an amazing journey. It's such an incredible process for everyone, for you as a practitioner when you're doing that training, but obviously for then everyone that you're interacting with that training as well. It's amazing.
Yes, it's great. Oh, I'm glad you love it still.
Yes. slightly off track.
Very reassuring. Yes, on track.
So obviously, you know, you've been a successful kinesiologist for a long time. You've had you're running your own school. Do you have advice for practitioners who are maybe up and coming, setting up their business for the first time, or people who've been doing it for a while but are maybe struggling to generate the clients they need? I know it's you know, we all have different ways of how we grow our business, but I'm just wondering whether you have a way that worked for you, or any advice that might be useful for our members.
Well, I'm rather old these days. So, you know, in the days when I was setting up, I could write leaflets and give them out, leave them in places, and talk to people, go to shows and fairs and that kind of thing, which I love to do, love doing that. But you know, this is COVID times, and also we're in the days of social media, which
Yeah.
I still don't really understand, to be quite honest, although obviously we all need websites and places on websites and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But I would say there are two things, I think. One is to really cherish every single client who comes to you. Each one is just amazing. They've had the courage to come and say, I need help. And that
Yeah.
takes courage. And so if we can cherish that and really honor the fact that they have dared to do that and come to us, you know, like, who am I for somebody to come to me and work with me? So I think we just cherish our clients, look after them, help them in every way we can, and be alongside them in their journey.
Yes. Yes. And we also learn a lot from our clients as
Oh,
well.
God, yes.
Nearly every client you have will teach you something new
Yeah,
about what you're doing.
absolutely right. They all do. And the number two thing is to have a good mentor.
Oh, yes, I agree with
Because
that.
I've had a mentor all the way through, and I still do have a mentor. And I think it's one of the most important things, really, because if I have a problem with a client, or a problem in me, or my business isn't going well, or there's something not quite right, I can go to the mentor and we can talk about it. And if you have a kinesiology mentor, then they can do a balance for you as well,
Mm.
or with you. So I would say having a mentor is fairly vital, because
Yeah.
without that, you know, it's a lonely world, isn't
It
it?
can
The
be
world
incredibly lonely, can't it?
of the kinesiology practitioner. And, you know, we have friends and supports, but we can't share our work because it's confidential.
Yes.
So we need to have somewhere confidential that we can take our problems with. And once a mentor gets to know you, then the absolutely brilliant thing is that it's quite easy to get into the next kind of thing that you want to talk about.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I agree. I have a mentor who I've had for, well, about a decade now. And yeah, it is really, really useful, because sometimes we doubt ourselves. Sometimes we find ourselves in difficult situations, but it's that motivational aspect as well.
Yeah.
And just sharing a problem can make a massive difference, you know. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
And for new practitioners, I think having a mentor is the place you can go and say, oh, my business isn't going as well as I'd like it to, you know, and then have a balance on it, you know,
Yeah.
find a way of coming through the problems, the blocks, the difficulties, and balancing it can be wonderful.
Yes. And who doesn't love a balance?
Well, exactly. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't also love our product.
Oh, right. So our 30th anniversary is our Pearl anniversary. And so we're asking the people that we're talking to whether they have any pearls of wisdom that they would like to share with us, either something that members of the public are able to do for themselves, or our practitioners are able to incorporate into their sessions. Have you got something lined up for us, Carrie?
Well, I have. And given that we're all locked down and I have no one here I can demonstrate on, I decided to share a pearl of how rather than what.
Oh, okay.
So this is my pearl. It's about witnessing the story that the person comes to us with, because people come to us when they're having trouble. They're in trouble. They have symptoms. They may be in pain. They're wanting something. They're wanting help of some kind. And when they come to us, I think the most precious thing we can offer them is to really witness what's happening with them. So we listen really deeply. We use our muscle checking, muscle testing to uncover the story that they're coming with. We uncover what's happened in the past, witness that. We uncover the other similar kinds of aches and pains or stuff that has happened to people. But there's something about really, really witnessing, listening, hearing on a very deep and active level that I think is absolutely crucial. And there's evidence from the world of psychotherapy, which I'm also trained in, that witnessing sets the stage for change to happen. So this isn't about the actual muscle testing, which we all do as kinesiologists. The muscle testing can help us to uncover the next thing or aspect of the person is ready to be witnessed. But witnessing is the bottom line. I mean, I think it's absolutely crucial to making a good connection with our clients so they feel heard, understood. There's somebody there with them. You know, if I go for a session, I like to know somebody's with me. I don't want to be told. I don't want to be done at. I want to be with the person who's working with me. So that's my pearl of wisdom.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we're going to put a link up in the description so that if anyone wants to see that pearl of wisdom in more detail, they can follow the link and go and see that.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, well, thank you ever so much for talking to me today, Carrie. It's been an absolute delight meeting you and finding out about your journey. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Phil. It's been great to talk to you and lovely to meet you and get to know you a bit too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.